2020 Democratic hopefuls are making their pitches to Michigan voters as they prepare for the second round of debates in Detroit. Democrats will be focusing on the state heading into the general election. The party lost the state to Donald Trump in 2016 by less than 11,000 votes. Democratic Governor Gretchen Whitmer won her election in 2018. She spoke to CBS News about what voters in the state are looking for.
People have been calling me to seek advice about what's happening in Michigan and what Michiganders want to hear. It really is about the dinner table issues. You know, in my campaign, I hardly ever talked about what was happening in Washington, D.C. I talked about how we're going to fix the dam roads, how we clean up drinking water, and ensure that people have access to getting the skills they need to get into good paying jobs. These are the fundamentals that Michiganders want to hear, and I suspect that lots of Americans are interested in this debate this week, but also as this election matures.
Well, Kathleen Gray joins me now. She's a political reporter for the Detroit Free Press. So, Kathy, we heard the governor talk. It's the issues that matter to Michigan. You know, this is a state that suffered from the Flint water crisis. She says you've got to fix the dam roads. What are the issues that'll shape the debate tonight, you think?
Well, health care is going to be a big one for voters in Michigan. The economy is going to be a big issue. Trade is going to be a big issue especially for the auto workers who aren't particularly happy with NAFTA, and they're not particularly happy with the replacement that President Trump is talking about now. So those are the primary issues, and health care was a big one in 2018 that helped Governor Whitmer win election and flip many seats in both state and Congress.
You know, you report at least 17 Democrats have visited Michigan this election cycle. Hillary Clinton was criticized for not paying enough attention to the state in 2016. Are Democrats showing that they've learned from that mistake from the Clinton campaign?
Well, you can't forget about rural Michigan when you're running for president or when you're running for any statewide office. Trump really carried the rural vote in most of Michigan. Hillary Clinton concentrated on the urban areas, Detroit, Ann Arbor to a certain extent, but mostly Detroit. And unfortunately, more than 40,000 citizens of Detroit, residents of Detroit, voted in 2012, didn't vote in 2016. And the margin of victory was only just over 10,000 votes. So, you know, you have to make sure that the African-American turnout in the urban areas is up, and you can't forget the rural areas either. And Hillary Clinton didn't campaign at all in the rural areas during the 2016 campaign.
Kathy, what do you think it is that mobilizes these Democratic voters in these areas that are so critical?
Well, especially in 2018, the suburban women just came out in droves, and they were the ones who drove 2 congressional seats flipping from red to blue. There was half a dozen state house and state senate seats, even more, a few more, that went from red to blue, and that was really driven by suburban women. And so that's going to be a key demographic in the 2020 presidential race.
I want to ask you about the Flint water crisis. It was in the news for quite a bit of time, sort of not as prominent anymore. How big of an issue is that for voters in Michigan?
Well, it's certainly a big issue for residents of Flint, and there's also many communities that their water has been contaminated with PFAS, which is a fire retardant. And so there's a lot of water issues that are at the forefront. And the candidates, many of the presidential candidates have already made their way to Flint and are visiting a variety of different places there, talking with residents. And the residents in Flint are hoping that they can back up their visits with actual action if they become president. They're a little bit skeptical at this point because Flint residents, there are many people who are still drinking bottled water instead of the water that's coming from their tap. So Flint is still a big issue, especially for the residents of Flint. And we'll see if those voters feel like their concerns are being heard by the candidates.
Last week, Kathy, as you know, there were 10 Democratic candidates who visited Detroit for the NAACP convention. How important will the African-American vote be to winning and securing Michigan?
It's going to be huge. like I said, 40,000 fewer Detroit residents voted in 2016 than voted in 2012. And, part of the function of that was Hillary Clinton. There was a lot of people who didn't necessarily like Hillary Clinton and didn't want to vote for Trump either. There was a big drop-off, about 75,000 votes for people who voted for many races down the ballot, but didn't vote for president. So the NAACP convention was an opportunity for the candidates to speak directly to African American voters from across the nation. It was a national convention, so there were many people in Detroit there, but it was a national audience as well.
Kathleen Gray, so grateful to have you on with your insights and perspective on Michigan politics. Thanks again.
Thank you.